Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting Live. And I am here today. I am wrapping up January. I started January with a conversation with Derek Brown on mindful mixology, and we're going to end it with talking about non-alcoholic beverages, and specifically with one of the manufacturers. And this woman, I do this wrong all the time, Lauren Chitwood. She is the co-founder and CEO of Spiritless. And I have a bottle of your Kentucky 74 Spiritless here. And so welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm so thrilled to be here. Thanks for including me.
Oh, you're welcome. And I have to tell the story of how this came about, because I was sitting in the La Dame's meeting in New York City, and we were sitting at lunch, and the room was full of chatter, right? 200 women chattering over lunch. And there were videos of our sponsors playing, and, nice corporate videos. And then all of a sudden, like the voice of God came on the loudspeaker and it's like, "Hey, I'm Lauren. And, and thank you so much for sponsoring me." And we all looked at the screen, and it was a video, like a selfie video from your phone. Yeah. And you were talking about your product and why you did it, or company, and why you did it. And the entire room went quiet. And I think it's a testament for nowadays how we do social media and marketing and things like that. But I like the fact that and just before we got on the show, you said you wanted to talk to women like you were in the room.
Yeah. No, listen, what an incredible organization. The Doms is just like power, it is just everything I love about food and beverage is just so encapsulated in that organization. But I'm flattered to hear we got their attention. It felt maybe somewhat ad hoc in the way that we did it. I mean, we just said like, "Hi, this is who I am, and this is why we care about this." But it resonated. So thank you for noticing.
It really did. It did. Yeah, and people were talking about it for days. So, or through the whole conference. All right. So Derek has worked with you. And so we did talk about you guys a little bit in January. And in the promotion for this, I said you were 3 working moms with 8 kids.
So we're a prolific group. We're now up to 9. Yeah.
So wow.
We have 9 kids, excuse the cat. So we're still in work from home world. So we have 9 kids that are under 11 at this point.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot.
I know.
And talking to your co-founder, Abby, she's like, we couldn't drink like we wanted to drink, like we used to drink before. And so tell us more about how this all came out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, we all 3 of us come from a history in hospitality, in one way or another, whether that was a public facing event or, you name it, on the corporate side, on the leisure side of the business. And, we felt the strain of needing to do that business dinner, or of, having a client put something in your hand when you're like, "No, but I still have like 9 more hours to go. I can't." There was always a moment that we wanted a tool. And, while we weren't sober serious, we were thoughtful about consumption for all the reasons that all of us are thoughtful about consumption now. And we looked at the market and we were disappointed with what we saw. And so, we said, we're going to take our love of food and beverage and spirits and see what we can make out of this. And we've been so fortunate to really build something special.
And that's amazing, because it's, and I've told this story before, and I actually talked to the woman whose this story is about, but kind of like that story you just said, is like, she used to take out car dealers and she would pay the bartender an extra $20 so that she would have her first drink. And then the rest of them would be just soda water with a lime, but she had ordered vodka soda. So it made her look like she was still drinking, and the next morning she was like, "Hey, everybody, how's it?" And, and the dealers would be like hanging.
Yeah. And she got everything she wanted, I'm sure. Drinking
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But it's kind of that same concept. It's like, you want that, you can have that first one, but you still want that taste.
And listen, there's there's a point for everyone, right? And I always talk about there's a spectrum of drinking, and it's from the sober serious to the sober sometimes, right? And the reality is the majority of people that use these products, like I think the data is 75% drink both adult alcoholic and adult non-alcoholic, right? It's about a moment in
Wow. Okay.
and so it's really exciting just to see all the ways that we fit into people's lives. It's in a range. A lot of our consumers are actually just using our product to pull back on the alcohol content. They're not even saying, I want a non-alcoholic cocktail. They're saying, I'll have a halvesies cocktail. So I'll make an old fashioned with an ounce of a Kentucky 74 by Spiritless and an ounce of your favorite bourbon. And they like that it's lower ABV. They like that it's half the calories. They like that they can maybe have 2 or 3 without maybe the impact. And so we just love every day hearing about how people are incorporating these things into their world.
That's awesome. And so I want to jump that. So here's the bottle. And actually, because before I ask that question, I want to show everybody this cute little box that it comes in. Well, anyways, so you open the box up, it says Spiritless on, ooh, where's my camera? Spiritless there. And then you've got it. And I love the design inside. And the box is falling apart. But
Thank you.
Listen, super cute.
We wanted to delight.
Yes.
Yeah, we wanted to delight. And we also wanted you, if you walked in and picked this up off the shelf somewhere, I want you to be able to bring that bottle into a party and have all the sex appeal that you would have gifting an incredible bottle of wine or a premium spirit, and without the stigma or the wah like party ended here kind of mentality. We wanted that experience to be there and for it to be just the same.
Somebody just commented, very cool. I don't know who that was, but thank you so much for being here. Yeah. Okay, so jumping back to same experience, and I told you before the show, like I took this to my friends, my mom, my dad, like a bunch of girlfriends who drink bourbon, and came with mixed reviews. But I love the fact that when I told you they drank it just on the rocks, you said it's actually meant for more of a cocktail.
Yes, absolutely.
So can you talk through that?
Sure. On the front of the bottle, it says it was sort of a sleight of hand for us to incorporate the word bourbon into it, but it says distilled non-alcoholic spirit for bourbon cocktails. And the reality is we are taking ethanol out by design, right? Ethanol's kind of a magical molecule, right? It makes flavors meld and talk. It has a sensory component, and certainly it is serving a different purpose for the user, right? Like we're choosing not to have it. So we are giving up a little bit of something there. But when you format it in a cocktail, you realize what an incredible building block it is, right? So I would encourage you to make a whiskey sour or make an old fashioned, some of those really classic things. And then you're going to go, oh yeah, holy moly, that feels like a drink. That's pretty cool, right? And that is that's the moment. Now, certainly, if you're used to drinking and tasting foolproof spirits, you're going to know there's not that punch in the mouth there and go, but the reality is like we did design the product not to have ethanol. So that's how it works. We have to remind people every once in a while.
Right, exactly. So it does add that flavor, and not being a bourbon drinker, I actually think that it smells like bourbon.
Yes.
And then I had at it smells like bourbon to me.
Probably smells like bourbon.
Yeah. And I had your canned old fashioned in New York at the Dom's conference, and again, not being a bourbon drinker, but I'm like, I'm going to taste this. It completely tasted like it. Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think, again, there is enormous education for non-alc every day. I mean, every day, all I do is tell the story of how Spiritless was founded and like how to use this stuff, right? Like how do these products change your lives? And I often tell people the analogy of the latte, right? So we used to drink incredible cow's milk lattes, and they were delicious. I still love them. And then we sort of decided maybe cow's milk wasn't the best for us every once in a while. And we start with oat and almond and soy, you name it. All of those things taste different, but they all serve a different purpose to the consumer that is ordering it at that time, right? What lactose, you name it. And so I remind people that, people can have a cocktail that is non-alcoholic, and it's going to, it is going to taste different, but it is serving a different purpose, just like the milk evolution or the dairy
Right.
evolution of our lives, right?
That's just so true. And even with different rice flours for make or different flours to making gluten-free products, right? Yes, everyone has a different purpose.
Right.
Yes.
Or the, the engineered meat world and meat alternative
Right.
world. Yes.
Yes.
They're all a little different.
Yes. So how was it bringing this product to market in the spirits industry as three women who are moms and entrepreneurs and doing this? How was that?
I mean, listen, Tracy. We started this business in October of 19.
Okay.
And so, there are so many moments that always still stick out in my mind of, both just harrowing heartache and incredible success. And,
Mhm.
I'm sure we've all seen that meme of the entrepreneur's journey on like a 24-hour cycle, and it does this and that all day long. And that is very true here. I think that, when you're creating a new product that takes enormous consumer education and consumer experience, when the world shuts down, you're kind of going, oh, well, crap, what are we going to do? And I remember sitting with the three founders, and, we were talking and sort of watching the news out of Asia and thinking about it. And, Lexi, my business partner, goes, listen, as long as we're still gathering in public, this is going to be just fine. Like famous last words 3 weeks later, right? We were completely
Right.
shut down. But, I think that there are certainly those moments that you do wonder about the boys club and the spirits world and things like that. But the reality is I see it the other way. In a field full of men and a field full of spirits, like we just get to stand outside of it. Like we are three women innovating America's native spirit. Like if that is not clickbait or a reason to have the pleasure of talking to you today and many other people, like it has just been an incredible tool. And, we can talk about, financing and capitalization and, just the complexities that is running a high growth business. Certainly all of that is there. But I think for all of the challenges that I'm sure exist, working in a male dominated world, like there's some superpower
Yeah.
to be in kind of fierce females and in this space as well, that I think has helped us more than hurt us.
Well, that's fantastic. And is your demographic more women than men?
So you would be really surprised. Honestly, it's pretty evenly split. And I think that,
Really?
well, but part of that is, and I think this is a misnomer in the spirits world and in general, that, and I think this brown spirits companies and brands are really more and more understanding the power of the female bourbon drinker, but it's generally kind of classified as a male's spirit in a lot of ways, or perceived as skewed more male. And so really, we've had incredible traction, but yeah, we've got males and females alike. The demographics is actually pretty evenly split.
Well, and my niece is 22 and she loves an old fashioned.
Yeah.
And so my brother is into bourbons and things as well. So it'll be interesting to let her try this out as well. Especially since she's in a phase of not drinking at the moment, but letting her try that out. Yeah.
And I always try to encourage my foolproof drinkers that haven't yet thought that non-alc is a part of their lives. I tell them about halvesies. And so I make them a halvesies old fashioned. And, I remind them that it's less than 100 calories. I remind them that they can have like 2 or 3 and drive home after a game, or those things that they wouldn't have been able to do. And they go, oh, well, I would do this all the time. Because they're, we've covered for that delta from the sensory experience for them. Like they still get a little bit of that relaxation in their shoulders and all the, experiences of that kind of first drink that we all enjoy. All of that is there without, with just kind of a little bit better for you mentality. And I think you would be surprised how many people were bringing to Spiritless just by saying like, just a little goes a long way over the course of a night or a week.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because it does help, especially in a business situation, right?
Yeah.
If you're wanting to, you have to go to that business dinner and you have to do all these other things. It allows you to have that flavor without the results of a typical drink.
Yeah,
Yes,
well, or
yes,
yeah,
yeah,
all the above, right? And so,
right.
it's an incredible tool, and also I love that you can say, "Hey, can I have a Kentucky 74 old fashioned?" It's
Hmm.
just like you'd order a Bullet or a Woodford, you name
That's
it,
awesome. Hmm.
without going like, "Can I have a non-alcoholic version of this?"
Right. Yeah.
And
Hmm.
there's so many ways that we've worked hard to kind of take the take those speed bumps of like, I don't want to order non-alc, or I don't want the stigma of ordering something
Right.
non-alcoholic in a group setting like that. We've really tried from a brand perspective to take that away as much as possible so it can just be a part of people's lives however they need it.
Well, and I love that. And last night I actually went to dinner at a restaurant and they had their non-alcoholic, they actually have Spiritless as the subject header and their drinks underneath. And I'm like, all right, one, I'm going to bring you Derek's book because
Yeah.
I need you to change these. And
Yeah.
two, I'm going to walk in with this and tell them over here, walk in with this and say, hey, put this on your bar.
Oh, thank you.
Right? You're welcome. And they're actually opening up a new restaurant that is like a speakeasy kind of thing. And this would be so perfect for that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No,
um,
listen, I mean, there is what is great just from an industry perspective, to kind of talk business is we don't cannibalize anything, right? Like if you're not
right,
drinking tonight, or if you're going to sit out, or if you could only have had one, like you're going to water or maybe a Diet
right,
Coke, right? And so
right.
for us, we're just only additive in terms of
Mhm.
revenue. We're not taken away from anything. So we start having those conversations, whether you super love our spirit or not, the reality is like, you just need this stuff in your bar because it's good business, because you're leaving money on the table
Right,
or not.
right. So do you have any good examples of somebody that's implemented it into the bar and they've seen that
Oh,
growth?
absolutely. Actually, we got a call recently from a pretty premium West Coast chain. Um,
Mhm,
and they're in California, kind of health and wellness, bright,
mhm.
shiny, very light filled space. And they called our area manager and they said, gosh, like we knew we needed this, but this has been the best selling cocktail on our menu. And this is not even dry January, but in the
Wow.
ONG in the October, November, December, best selling cocktail of all the cocktails. The
Wow.
Yeah, I was shocked.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, we are certainly surprising people, and
Yeah,
I love
yeah.
that. Right.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
and you said surprise and delight, and because you're doing the same thing, you're doing that financially,
Mhm.
surprising and delighting, but you're also surprising and delighting the drinker.
Absolutely. And it's just, I think hospitality at its core, right, is saying like, I thought of you. Like,
Right.
welcome. I thought
Mhm,
this is for you. And
mhm.
so, what a better way to include someone and to make a guest feel welcome than to have something for them to drink when their expectation was that they were going to be sitting out.
Right.
And I think it's just it speaks volumes to just how to be great hosts, whether that's in your home or in an establishment. And we're
Right.
hearing that from customers all the time. Oh, it just feels so good to go somewhere and be able to order something like I'm the same as everyone else, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's adult contract. And Suzanne has popped in here and says, I love this discussion so much.
Thanks, Susie.
Yeah. And I agree, Suzanne. I mean, I think, and because she's in hospitality, you're in hospitality, we understand this. And it's like going to industry events or whatever. It's like you are relegated to that small little tiny cup of water or that bottled water and club soda and lime.
Yeah.
So I wanted the less is yes.
Yeah.
Where did here? All right, let me just put that up there. Less is yes. So
Yeah.
tell me where that came from, and how, and what that
Yeah, so
means.
for us, I mean, I think that one of the things that we wanted to be thoughtful about, we live in sort of a polarized world, right? It's on or it's
Hmm.
off. Yes or no. You're sober or you're not, right?
Right,
And that wasn't our experience. Our experience was that from time to time we might make a choice, and then we might make a different choice a few minutes later. And to again remove that stigma and to have an empowering point of view on on occasionally making a different choice. And so, we also had so many conversations when we were naming this brand, Spiritless. Well, like is that
Mhm.
not inspiring? This should be something optimistic, right? There were so many things about the name that we were, certainly really thoughtful on, but where we landed was that, it's a noun, it's a verb, it's can sit on the top of that cocktail menu, and they can everything you need to know about what's in this bottle is said right here. And so for Less is Yes, it was a play and a support of the brand name, but to us it really embodied the flexibility that we wanted to have as consumers and that felt right for positioning. So yeah, less is yes in every
Let's see. Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. All right. So Pamela has popped in here and has a question here about allergens. And I was in a cocktail, a non-alcoholic, I'll figure this out here in a second, non-alcoholic beverage store in Minneapolis on last month. And what I noticed about all the non-alcoholic spirits is that you are putting the nutrition labeling facts on here as well as the ingredients, but which you don't find on typical spirits bottles.
Well, that's because we're technically a food product because we're non-out.
Okay.
So we're regulated by
Okay.
the FDA. So there are certain transparencies and disclosures that you have there that you don't have in spirits, which it'll be interesting to see if that could change in spirits.
Right.
And in terms of allergens, so we're vegan, non-GMO, gluten-free. We meet a lot of those metrics that the consumer certainly would want. I think that an important part for members of the group here too is we are shelf stable, and that's sort of a loaded in the wellness world. Having stabilizers or preservatives in a product, it's a little bit of a catch-22, right? Because what we knew was important was that we could sit on a bar, we could function like a spirit, and there was a certain amount of preservatives and kind of safety mechanisms that we had to have in that product, because obviously when you have alcohol, nothing will grow in it. That doesn't exist anymore, right? When you take that alcohol away.
Right.
And so, we do bring a lot of those big check boxes, vegan, gluten-free, non-GMO, but at the same time, there are some preservatives in the product, but it allows us to sit on a shelf for an extended period of time and really function like a spirit, where, people that aren't using those stabilizers and those preservatives, they got to go in the beer cooler and they're good for like 2 weeks. And that also is that's a quick turnaround on a spirits bottle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I just posted a link in there for Pamela on the website under the FAQs. They do talk about the allergens, and just so you know, it says because it's vegan, so it also means there's no milk, no eggs, no fish, no shellfish, no tree nuts, peanuts, wheat, and soy. And you are working on getting certified gluten-free. Is that correct?
We are. So we're working on getting. We are unofficially, can't put it in writing. Don't hold me to it, gluten-free, but we are working on that certification. Yes, and actually we're working on kosher and even halal as well.
That's awesome. That opens up a whole nother long opportunity for a lot of different drinkers. And so she's got another follow-up question on that. Is that the natural flavors? Because that is a bane of everyone's existence of what those natural flavors mean.
Yes, and certainly if anyone has a specific natural flavor that they are concerned about, we are happy to dive in and really double click on the specifics of that. But we've mostly done everything we can possibly do to make a great product and have it meet as many of those healthy metrics that people are looking for.
Yeah. And it is hard. And that's where the FDA doesn't require you to label unless it's, one of the top 9s, but if it's minute, it still is a challenge.
It can be, it certainly can be. And again, I kind of come back to as well, when we're talking about the lesser of evils on some of this stuff, like, we're the alternative to the ultimate neuroinhibitor, right? So, I think a lot of people, in that moment of, I could have something that's going to make me feel really bad and is, we have no debate anymore, that's really not good for me in any significant quantity, versus this other thing, assuming you don't have a significant allergen, of course. People are excited to give us a little bit of grace on some of that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad that you're open to having those conversations about, hey, we will trace it back and figure and let you know if this is in there. Yeah. That's
Absolutely.
really
Every once in
important.
a while, we get somebody that says, I can't have clove or something like that specific. And we're
Mhm.
always super transparent and happy to kind of give any
Okay.
data that we can.
Okay, that's fantastic. So when I ask you before the show is like, do you have I want to do negative and positive experiences of where you've seen, non-alcoholic cocktails, but a negative situation where food and beverage has been impacted, or
Yeah.
that's not even right. Yeah. Can you share one?
Well, I think that for decades of our lives, we walked
Hmm.
into places and saw a whole spectrum, people that are really overserved, right?
Hmm.
And that pose liability, people that are really on the sidelines that would love something else. And also people that were served apple juice, right? With maybe some ginger ale or something like that in it, and kind of build it as a mocktail. And the reality is, as consumers, we want sophisticated adult experiences in America. Like that,
Hmm.
that is where the trends are. It's, what the consumer
Hmm.
is demanding. And so, we can all, I think everybody in this video can remember a time um, that we like, oh, we should have had something there for that person.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
so, those still exist. And if we can be a tool, whether it's our spirits, but also our canned products, as we start talking about,
Hmm.
I know, we both have shared the pleasures of super large format events in festivals.
Right.
Cans were built for that, right? To be able
Right.
to say, like, I'm going to pop an old fashioned and pour it over ice and throw a cherry on top for you as a non-drinker, to have like a non-alc old fashioned at a slick music
Hmm.
festival or a food and wine festival. What a cool thing. I mean,
Totally. Yeah.
yeah. And so to
Yeah.
me, like those are the opportunities that as hospitality professionals are really our jobs to step into and provide that leadership and say, we're going to host well, we're going to host responsibly, um,
Right.
and have a great tool. And, the fact of the matter is we do hear from people, say, I switched this guy over. He didn't even know he was so ready to be switched over. Right. Like there's
Hmm.
those moments that you can make, obviously those executive decisions as a purveyor, or as a bartender, that were also great tools for as well.
Yeah, well, and it's really I've shared a story about a woman that I used to work with who fell in a fountain because she was overserved, and it at those big events it makes it hard because that person's probably going to five different bartenders,
Yes.
and part of their skill set is to recognize when somebody's been overserved, and they can then give them that without it, you know.
Without having to have an uncomfortable conversation too.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of, a bartender where they're making that decision, they're going, okay, am I going to be able to de-escalate this? Is this going to be a thing? Is this person going to turn around and walk away and give me the bird? Is he, there's a,
Right.
or is it just going to be fine? Right. And so to be
Right.
able to take as much friction out of that moment as possible is great. But the reality is the majority of our consumers they're sophisticated, mature, reasonable consumers in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
They're looking
Right.
for ways to be a part of something. So we are a tool for the extremes, but also the reality is the majority of people that like our products are like, they're big on moderation.
Yeah, yeah. And your bartenders you've had great feedback from bartenders across the country?
Yes, incredible feedback. And Derek, who was on the show earlier this month, I mean, he's been just such an incredible consigliere from the start. And I remember, when we first connected with Derek, and he told us he really liked product, we were like fangirling. We're like, Derek Brown likes our liquid. So, and that's still never lost on us, right? Like when we walk into
Mhm.
a top account and they make an old fashioned, or they make themselves a cocktail, or we pick something. The most fun thing is when we pick a bourbon cocktail off their menu and say, hey, make this with that. And it's their drink, right? And so
Mhm.
for them to go, all right, it just
Uh-huh.
like
Yeah.
swells. It's such a treat.
That's very cool and very encouraging for everyone. And because it's an opportunity, like you said earlier, to grow revenue without
It
causing
don't
any
take
kind
away
of
from anything. Yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's such an and I think once people get that, even if you're kind of like on non out, because we still have those
Right.
guys or and gals that
Mhm.
go, Lauren, I drink for effect. Sorry.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I get it. But when you really get into just the nuts and bolts of the business, it's going like you just don't leave stuff on the table, right?
Right. Right.
And we usually are able to get in.
And all right, she just popped in another comment here. I'm a huge bourbon lover, so this is very exciting. I can't wait to verify the natural flavors are safe for me and the other old-fashioned drinks. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah, send me an email,
Yeah.
Pamela. We will dive deeply, and I hope we can have you around our table. That would be
Well, and I love that the fact that you just said that. I hope that we can have you around our table because that is the thing is like you're sitting there, whether with your friends or with, your colleagues, your boss,
yes,
it allows you to be around the table and participate.
yeah. We all
Yeah.
have been at that dinner,
Hmm.
right, where somebody says, "I should be done," and in that moment, the meal is over, right, because they stopped drinking.
Hmm.
And also even just to get back to like a revenue perspective, how many times has a server approached a table and they say, "Hey, can we have one more?" Everyone's having such a good time, and if they go, "Oh, we shouldn't," like just think about that little moment of sales training where you go, "Hey, let's do a low proof round for you guys. You're having so much fun," and they go, "Perfect." Right? That sounds great.
Yeah.
Like I know we're low proof, and there you go. Right? Like that's a
Right.
whole other ring on the check that they weren't going to get otherwise. So it's exciting to see all of it
Yeah.
unfold in all the use cases.
And let's talk about price point though, because we're talking about sales, like price point for, I think this was $34
Yeah, so
online. Is that right?
$35.99 on spiritless.com. Um,
Hmm.
in the wholesale market, we are really priced just like a spirit, about $1 an ounce. So as you're
Okay.
starting to think, and I think one of the things that is also so exciting, there's a big misnomer or question like, will the consumer pay the same
Hmm.
price as the cocktail for this stuff?
Right.
And what we see day after day is absolutely yes, they will. And they're so especially the consumers that are really like they're doing a dry January or they're not drinking during the week and they sort of dreaded because they had to do this business dinner. They are
Right.
so excited and like delighted to pay $16 for this cocktail. I mean, they're just going,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, which is fun. So at the
Yeah.
you're again, if you're at a $2.99 Diet Coke with free refills or a couple of cocktails,
Right.
like come on, guys.
Right. Exactly. That makes a lot more sense. Okay, so one of the things that when I ask you again before we started on the show is that a best practice that you've seen, and I love what you described on accounts with Spiritless is on their drink menu that are normally, instead of calling it out as a separate category,
Yeah.
what have you
So
seen?
what we are loving, and I think this just speaks to the traction of the category and really how things have grown, is that we often there's a full drink menu and there's sometimes an asterisk at the bottom that said any of these cocktails can be made non-alcoholic. Like
Yeah.
like what an inclusive, cool
Yeah.
thing. I don't even have to order off the.
Hmm.
It's like the kids menu
Right.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Even
Hmm.
below the sodas, like where the mocktails live. And
Right.
so, that has been a new trend that we've been really, really excited to see. And more and more, you're just seeing an enormous range of kind of menu placements and
Hmm.
experiences for the consumer. And sometimes, even in these tasting experiences, you're sometimes on a journey of adult and non-alc now. Like they're
Hmm.
blending both. And so I think that people are much more just realizing the reality, which is that there is a spectrum and people are looking for moderation. They're looking for a little more wellness. It is not an all or nothing deal. It's not
Hmm.
about being sober serious all the time. It's just about making a better choice sometimes.
Well, and because it is, and I like the fact that you said it's sober. There's that sober curious, terminology, but it's not wanting to do it all the time. The now Oh, I forgot what I was going to ask you. Oh, where can we get this besides on the spiritless.com? Do we find, and because it's run by the FDA, I keep showing your bottle. Ooh, there
Yeah.
you go.
Right.
You can ship it across all states because there's no
Yes. So
no tobacco to tax or
yes.
whatever.
So
Yeah.
so a couple of things. So we know that it's really important in all of our experience in hospitality. You need to be able to buy Spiritless, in all the ways that as a purveyor you would buy Spiritless. So we're distributed in
Mhm.
40 states with some of the top distributors in the US, which has been a wonderful, wonderful piece of this business. We are also able to go direct in a variety of formats. So if somebody doesn't have a liquor license, like we have coffee shops sometimes, and places that are looking to maybe get some of that later afternoon crowd, and
Oh, that's a great idea.
so there's some of that. So we're able to go direct, and then certainly just for the consumer, you can buy us at, you can buy us at Total Wine, you can buy us at Bevmo, all the Bennies, all the usual suspects in terms of large
Mhm.
format, liquor retail. We've got a lot of those covered. So, but if you need to figure out how to get Spiritless, you just reach out and we will help you figure out the right way to get Spiritless for you.
Yeah, because I mean, Abby sent this to me because I couldn't find it. It's in Raleigh, but which is
Okay.
a 2-hour drive,
Yeah.
right? But I'm not going to find this in because I'm in North Carolina and we have ABC stores,
Yes.
so I'm not going to find it in an ABC store.
So certain
Oh.
states, North
Mhm.
Carolina, New York, depending on how antiquated, which they're all very antiquated, their control state laws are. Um,
Mhm.
they haven't quite caught up to the idea that somebody would want to sell something non-alcoholic in a liquor store, right? Because this is a whole new world that we're living in. So, we are working really closely with some trade organizations and a variety of groups to bring some of those really antiquated states around to say, hey, like, we should be in this ABC store. It makes a lot of sense for you guys. And they're going to
Mhm.
love to have you, but I think when I read the law on page 45, it says that you don't have enough alcohol. I don't know if I can do that. So we're working through it. But in the majority of states, particularly non-control states, you can find us a lot of places.
That sounds like a moonshine kind of question. There's not enough alcohol in it.
We always say we got to get them to take their alcohol brains out of their heads to understand
Mhm.
how this works.
Right.
And we usually can get them there, but it's a little work.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 more questions.
Sure.
How do you or however many more, but how do you we talked about it a little bit, and the title of this show is surprising and delighting guests with the non-alcoholic. So you really say it's a cocktail, using it as a cocktail. And actually let's talk about what other things you have besides Kentucky 74. Besides, yeah, and then also what is, I just asked you 10 questions in one sentence.
It's okay.
What is Kentucky 74? The 74 is the 74th distillery. Is that correct?
Yes.
In the state of
So,
Kentucky?
okay, so we'll do a little storytelling. So
Okay.
Kentucky 74, obviously we founded the business in Kentucky. We literally built this baby still in my basement. And it was with a huge popcorn tin and a commercial sous vide and a sump pump and a cooler. My family was like, oh my gosh, have you turned into Walter White? Are we Breaking Bad? Like, what are you making in our basement? Um, and we actually walked around the backs of distilleries all throughout Louisville and talked to all the good old boys, and they were like, y'all are gonna kill your kids. You can't do this shit in your basement. We're like, no, it'll be fine. And at one point, we thought we were gonna actually have to file for a distiller's license. And when we submitted all of that paperwork, we were in line to be the 74th distillery in the state of Kentucky. So, which is why Kentucky 74 was born. We actually now do all of our manufacturing with a third party and have figured out some really slick ways to have just some great kind of lean operations that have been hugely helpful to our business. So that's kind of the founding myth and how we really came up with this process. And then our next product is Jalisco 55, which is a non-alcoholic spirit for your favorite tequila cocktails.
Okay.
Mean margarita. And, I think for us, one, we wanted to be able to take those big categories and do them well. And for us, it was a lot about being able to walk in, to a bar, to a restaurant and order a standard cocktail, right? Like I want a margarita. Like it's one of life's great pleasures, right?
Right.
So,
Yes.
but those are very unique and very complex flavors to mimic. And we can talk about the category broadly, but there's a lot of clear products. So like gin inspired products. Obviously, juniper is a pretty it's an easier flavor molecule to manipulate. But we've been excited and very proud to bring some pretty incredible spirits on the market that people often tip their hats to, because they're not easy off the shelf kind of flavor profiles, if you will.
Exactly. Well, and my sister-in-law has become a connoisseur of tequila, so I'm going to definitely have her try that, because to see what she, how
Yeah.
she experiences that after the fact. Yeah.
And I will also tell you also, and a big thing with the category in general, right, is you're losing some of that sensory experience. We talked about that earlier, that punch in the mouth. You go, "Oh, that took my breath away. That was serious." And what we have done to sort of bridge that gap a bit is we've created what we call horse's kick ginger syrup, which, ginger has all of those flavors and all of that heat, but isn't necessarily that pepper, because some brands are trying to replicate the burn, but it feels more like it's in capsaicin. So like I feel like I'm eating a chicken wing, like my lips start burning when I drink it, not necessarily that spirit feeling. And ginger has been such a great way to complement that. So, if anybody's ordering online, I would encourage them to throw a little bottle of our horse's kick ginger syrup in their cart with them, because it makes just an awesome just ginger margarita, a little bit in the old fashioned, helps really kind of add to that heat and that experience that also, especially if you're typically a spirits drinker, goes, "Ooh, that feels like a drink. Like there's some kick there."
And so, because I'm scouring your website here, so that's under the ginger margarita cocktail kit,
Yeah.
or you can buy it separately. Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome.
And really, that started as frankly just like an add-on to the cart. We liked it. We knew we wanted something there.
Hmm.
But on-premise accounts are asking for it as well. We've really actually made a pretty great product there, which is exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then I mentioned earlier that you had the old fashioned in the can, and you also have a whiskey sour.
Correct. And then in the spring, we'll be launching a margarita as well, which is really, really exciting. And listen, like people love convenience. Like they pop in a can, and I will tell you, excuse the cat.
It's okay.
Lexi loves making cocktails. Like Lexi's one of my business partners. And I'm very guilty of, like, I like opening a bottle of wine because, like, I don't have to do anything after I open the bottle of wine. There's no more dishes that I don't have to clean up, right? And so for me, the cans are just such a wonderful tool. And the convenience is just so great.
Yeah. Well, and like you said earlier, it's great for concerts and outdoor venues and things like that. So,
Yep.
and beside the pool, right?
Yes.
You're out behind your own pool in the backyard, and you've got that.
Well, and also for bartenders who maybe aren't craft bartenders, like there is a little bit of there's a little bit of art, especially that goes into making a great non-alcoholic cocktail, right? Like how are you balancing out the sugars? And I'm sure Derek maybe even touched on this. He certainly does in his book, to get some more of that weight in, or to create a little bit more of that mouthfeel, et cetera. And so, what's wonderful is that, the cans really solve some of those problems for you in a mass environment, or if you're kind of new to non-alc and are just, getting that balance right on how to have kind of that weight and that heft that you're really looking for.
Right. Okay. Awesome. Oh my gosh, I'm very, very excited about this. And I told Derek, I'm like, I want to take a copy of your book to every hotel site visit that I do. And then I want to take this with me as well, and saying, hey, put this on there, because I think you're welcome. I mean, it's a huge market. It's not just for, it is 100% to create inclusion and belonging.
Yes.
But on the flip side of that, it's 100% way of making new revenue.
No, listen, it is a win-win for everyone. And what's wonderful is, like, we're now in the phase of the business and in the category where, these truths that I have been kind of like whispering and beating and screaming, for years, are now becoming commonplace. And it's just such a pleasure to have been part of building that. And it's
Mhm.
also just so wonderful to now be seeing some of the fruits of our labor, because the biggest, some of the biggest hotel chains in the world are now going,
Mhm.
like, I get it.
Yeah.
And also just we've all accommodated a group that isn't drinking, whether it be a religious
Right.
group or, I mean, you name it, daytime. There's just stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Actually thought of another question. The demographics. So you said it was 50-50 male, female, but what about the age demographic? Who are you seeing as your buyers?
So it's interesting. We found our sweet spot, and I know it very well because I sit squarely in it. But kind of the millennial parent for us,
Okay.
somewhere between early 30s to mid 40s is
Okay.
is really, those are our consumers that are most likely to say, like, I need a tool. Right. And I
Mhm.
know that pain, because you're busy, you're working, you're earning, you're out, you're selling, and then you got family and you got kids. And it's just, you all of a sudden realize, like, I can't wake up with a hangover and these kids anymore, because it's so terrible. It is so terrible. And so that's probably our fastest adopting group. But with
Okay.
that being said, what we're now learning about consumption, just from a data perspective broadly, is like, young people are, these 20-year-olds, they're just not drinking. Like, they have
Mhm.
really, really cut back. And now they're experiencing other things. So they're microdosing mushrooms now. And there's a whole other world that's going on there that feels sort of foreign. But they are finding Kentucky 74 and Jalisco 55, as a complement to their preferred substance. And
Mhm.
then we have this whole other range, which is I would call it like my kind of 55, 65 plus group, which they went into their last physical and their doctor said, you got to cut it out, man. Like, it's time.
Mhm.
And so they're looking, and that ritual of the evening cocktail is so habitualized, and just part of their world, that we're becoming a really kind of integral part of their day, because they've had to make a change, and like that just
Right.
happens to all of us. So there's
Yep.
there's a spot for us in everyone's lives at some point.
Well, Suzanne just piped in again. It's a growing market. For medical reasons, she is now your target consumer. Thank
Yeah,
you for bringing this to the table.
yeah.
So,
Well,
yes.
thanks for enjoying. And we all have a medical reason, for one reason
Mhm.
or another, for our whole lives. That's why I say this is a product for everybody sometimes.
Yeah, I like that. A product for everybody sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, so final question, which I ask all of my guests, is what does a safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experience look like to you or feel like to you?
Yeah. I mean, I think that in so many ways, like, we have worked really hard to create almost exactly that. Right.
Mhm.
And I love to host. I welcome people into my home. We have Shabbat dinner every Friday, and we're really trying to build those spaces personally. And I did it professionally for so long. And to me, it's saying, I thought of you and I have something for you, right? As
I
my
love that.
guest. And to me, that all the nuance and all the noise when you thought of someone and made sure you had something for them, kind of goes away. So that's my point of view on it. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you. And
Thank-
it's bringing everybody to the table.
Yeah.
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 Thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome, Lauren.
Right.
Thank you. Yes, I am so excited. And you're in Austin, right? Is that where you are or
So,
where are
so
you?
I live in Louisville, but
Oh, okay.
corporate headquarters is in Austin. Lexi, one of my business partners, is in Austin. Abby is still here in
Okay.
Louisville with me,
Yep.
and we're actually we're entirely made in Texas at this point. So we're just distilled in Houston, blended and bottled in Waco, and corporate headquarters is in Austin. So
Wow.
we are
You got
honorary Texans, one way or
Yeah,
another at
you
this
got
point.
the state covered.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You actually need to get oh my gosh, the guy Chet who travels the state of Texas
Oh, I
to
need to know
come
him.
visit you. Oh yeah, I'll
Thank you.
connect you with him
I
because
would love that.
he does experiences all over the state of Texas. So yeah.
Oh, I would love
Okay. Pamela said thank you very much. You're welcome, ma'am. Thank you. And Lauren, really, really appreciate what you and Abby and Lexi have done.
Oh,
And it's really important for society in general. So thank you.
well, listen, thank you again. Thank you for helping us tell our story. Like this
You're
is really
welcome.
important in my business, and I really appreciate you hosting me. I really do.
You're all right. You're welcome. All right, everybody. So until next time, I will be back here next Wednesday. We're going to talk about some food and beverage trends as well again. And stay safe and eat well, or stay safe, eat well, and drink well.
Heck yeah.
And all right. Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.